The cold, sterile light of the command center hummed softly above the gathered officers. Captain Lena Hayes stood at the helm, her sharp gaze fixed on the holographic display floating before her. Her hands rested on the metal table, knuckles white with tension, as the image of an approaching alien fleet filled the screen. "They're moving faster than anticipated," her second-in-command, Lieutenant Davis, remarked, his voice low but steady. His eyes mirrored the worry reflected in everyone else's faces. Lena didn't flinch. "How long until they reach our outer defenses?" 2 hours, max," Davis replied. "And judging by their formation, they aren't looking to negotiate." The room fell silent, the weight of his words settling like lead. Earth had never faced an enemy like this. The Zargioel, a nomadic, war-hardened alien race, had wiped out entire star systems, leaving only ruin in their wake. And now, they were coming for Earth. "We've faced worse," Lena said, breaking the silence. Her tone was measured yet resolute. It was a lie, and everyone in the room knew it, but they needed her confidence. They couldn't afford to panic. Her team had been preparing for this moment for months, but now that it was here, the air in the room felt suffocating. As the captain, it was her job to push that fear aside, to guide them through the storm. "Bring up defense grid projections," she ordered, straightening her posture. "And alert the fleet. We're launching immediately." Davis moved quickly, tapping into the console beside her. The defense grid flickered to life on the holodisplay, a vast network of orbital cannons, missile platforms, and drones surrounding Earth like a protective cocoon. Yet, as formidable as it appeared, Lena knew it would barely slow the Zargioel down. "Captain, with their current trajectory, they'll breach our outer defenses within 30 minutes, Davis said quietly. His concern was evident, though he kept his voice professional. He trusted Lena, but they were all painfully aware of the Zargioel's reputation. No one had survived their first strike. Lena's mind raced. She glanced at the holographic display again, noting the distance between Earth and the oncoming fleet. There had to be a way to buy more time, to hit them hard enough to force a retreat, or at least weaken them before they reached the planet. She turned to her tactical officer, Lieutenant Jaura Morales, a brilliant strategist with a reputation for unorthodox methods. "Morales, give me options. What can we throw at them before they breach the grid?" Morales blinked, snapping out of her thoughts. "We could deploy the Nyx-class drones. They're fast enough to intercept the fleet in deep space. But with the Zargioel shields, they'll need to hit precisely at their weak points. We don't have enough firepower to overwhelm them directly. Precision is better than brute force," Lena said, her mind already calculating the odds. "Send the drones. Coordinate with the fleet to cover their approach. We'll meet the Zargioel head-on, but I want them bleeding by the time they reach us." "Yes, Captain," Morales replied, already sending out the command. Davis glanced at Lena, his jaw tight. "Do you really think we can hold them off?" Lena didn't hesitate. "We don't have a choice." The hum of the command center intensified as the crew scrambled to execute Lena's orders. Red warning lights pulsed along the walls, signaling the imminent launch. Outside, the fleet prepared for battle, sleek warships rising into the cold vacuum of space. Lena took a deep breath, staring at the swirling mass of ships on the display. The Zargioel were coming, and they weren't just another enemy, they were an extinction-level threat. But as long as Lena drew breath, Earth would not fall. "Prepare for contact," she commanded, her voice cutting through the room with finality. The first wave was about to hit, and Earth's survival hung in the balance. The stars outside the viewport blinked indifferently, unaware of the imminent clash. Inside the battlecruiser Atlas, the air was thick with the kind of tension that left no room for doubt. The fleet hung in space, primed for battle. Captain Lena Hayes stood rigid in the command center, eyes locked on the tactical display that mirrored the dread of every soul on board. The Zargioel fleet was closer now, a sea of predatory warships moving with deadly precision. "Drones are in position," Lieutenant Jaura Morales announced, her voice steady but tinged with urgency. She tapped furiously on her console, coordinating the advance of the Nyx-class drones. Engagement begins in 2 minutes. Lena nodded. She could feel the weight of every decision pressing down on her shoulders. The drones were their first line of defense, armed with the best tech Earth could muster, but she knew it wouldn't be enough. They were buying time to figure out how to stop an enemy that had never lost. Lieutenant Davis broke the silence. Captain, the Horizon reports that the Zargioel ships have begun charging their primary weapons. We'll be in range in 15 minutes. Lena's grip tightened on the edge of the tactical table. How long before we can intercept them with the fleet? 8 minutes, Davis replied, his jaw set. His eyes flickered between the incoming fleet and Lena, waiting for her call. Lena straightened, her voice cold and calculated. Send the command. All ships are to engage on my mark. No one breaks formation. The room buzzed with activity as Davis relayed her orders. Officers worked quickly, voices low but intense. They knew what was coming, and none of them expected it to be easy. Lena's mind raced through possible outcomes, every scenario leading to the same grim conclusion: they weren't ready. Earth had prepared for war, but not this war. She felt the weight of her duty, the burden of protecting billions. If they failed here, there would be nothing left of home to save. Captain! A voice called from the communications station, breaking her thoughts. It was Ensign Khalil, one of the newer crew members, his face pale but determined. The Zargioel just responded to our broadcasts. Lena's brow furrowed. They sent a message? Just 2 words, Khalil said, swallowing hard. No mercy. The air grew colder, silence stretching across the room. Lena clenched her fists, the words sinking into her core. The Zargioel weren't just here to conquer, they were here to annihilate. Understood, she said quietly. No mercy. The first of the drones reached the Zargioel fleet, their sleek, angular forms barely visible against the black expanse of space. A flash of light erupted as they engaged, the soundless explosions playing out on the hollow display in vivid bursts. The drones moved with precision, targeting the weak points of the Zargioel shields, as Morales had planned. But the aliens were prepared. Their ships absorbed the initial strikes, then retaliated with devastating force, vaporizing the drones in seconds. They're adapting faster than expected, Morales said, frustration creeping into her voice. We're losing drones fast. Lena exhaled slowly, steadying herself. Pull them back. No use throwing them away. Morales hesitated for a split second, then relayed the command. The remaining drones disengaged, retreating toward the fleet, but the damage had been done. The Zargioel were closing in, their weapons charged and ready to strike. Captain, Davis said, his voice grim. We're out of time. Lena stared at the tactical display, her heart pounding. This was it, the moment everything changed. Prepare the fleet for full engagement, she ordered. Target their command ships first. We cut the head off the snake. The command center came alive with frantic energy. Red lights flared as the Atlas and the rest of Earth's fleet powered their weapons, positioning themselves for the coming assault. Lena could feel the tension thrumming through her veins, but she couldn't afford to let it show. Morales, get me firing solutions, she said. Davis, keep us updated on their movements. We need to stay one step ahead, or this ends before it begins. Suddenly, the hollow display flickered, then shifted as new data streamed in. The Zargioel fleet had adjusted its formation, too quickly. They were preparing for something bigger, something devastating. They're concentrating their fire, Morales said, her fingers flying across the controls. Looks like a full frontal assault. Lena's eyes narrowed. She could see it now, the trap. The Zargioel were planning to overwhelm them in one massive strike, betting that Earth wouldn't survive the initial onslaught. Then we don't give them the chance, Lena snapped. Deploy decoys, scatter them. We hit from the flanks. As the fleet moved into position, the final countdown began. Lena watched as the Zargioel ships loomed larger on the display, their shadows stretching across the vast emptiness of space. In minutes, the battle would begin. Let's make them regret coming here, she said, her voice hard as steel. The first volley of missiles launched, streaking through the void toward the heart of the enemy fleet. The Atlas shuddered as the first volley of Zargioel fire hit the ship's shields, the impact sending a deep rumble through the hull. Captain Lena Hayes gripped the edge of her command console, her knuckles white, as the entire ship trembled beneath her feet. The hollow display in front of her flickered, updating the tactical map with every explosion that lit up the battlefield outside. "Shields holding at 75%. Lieutenant Yara Morales called out, her voice straining with the intensity of the moment. Her fingers danced over her console, rerouting power and managing the energy shields that separated them from obliteration. Lena clenched her jaw, her mind racing through the numbers. 75% wasn't good enough. Not against the Zargioel, whose relentless assault seemed to grow fiercer with every passing second. The enemy fleet had adopted a wedge formation, driving into the heart of Earth's defenses. They were pushing for a quick, overwhelming victory, just as Lena had predicted. "We need to disrupt their formation," Lena said, her voice steely as she stepped closer to the display. "If they break through our center, we're finished." Lieutenant Davis, monitoring the fleet's movements, nodded grimly. "They're already focusing on our lead ships. The Horizon and the Vanguard are taking heavy damage." Lena's mind worked furiously, scanning the map for any advantage. Her fleet was smaller, less experienced, but they had something the Zargioel didn't: adaptability. They couldn't win in a direct confrontation, but Lena wasn't looking for a straightforward fight. She was looking for an opportunity to strike at the enemy's weak points. "Launch all remaining decoys," Lena ordered. "And get the Dauntless and Tempest to swing wide. We'll hit them from both sides while their focus is on the center." Morales's fingers flew over her console, executing the commands with practiced precision. Moments later, a series of smaller ships shot forward, darting into the Zargioel's formation like gnats. The decoys spread out, their reflective hulls confusing the enemy's targeting systems, while the Dauntless and Tempest moved into flanking positions. Outside, the battle was a dazzling display of violence. Missiles streaked through the void, leaving glowing trails in their wake. Energy beams arced between ships, illuminating the blackness of space with their deadly glow. Lena could feel the pressure in her chest building with each passing moment, every decision critical to the survival of her crew. "Their targeting is faltering," Morales reported, a hint of satisfaction in her voice. "They're shifting fire to the decoys." Lena allowed herself a small, tight smile. It wasn't much, but it was a start. "Good. Now let's hit them where it hurts." The Atlas surged forward as Lena issued her next command, leading the assault. The flanking ships opened fire simultaneously, their weapons aimed at the exposed sides of the Zargioel fleet. Explosions rippled through the enemy ranks as Earth's fleet tore into the vulnerable ships. For a moment, it seemed like they had the upper hand. But the Zargioel weren't backing down. They adapted with terrifying speed, shifting their formation to absorb the blows. The enemy's lead ship, a colossal vessel with black, jagged edges, unleashed a barrage of fire that ripped through the Horizon's shields. "The Horizon's shields are down!" Davis shouted, his face pale. "They're taking direct hits." Lena's heart sank as she watched the Horizon buckle under the onslaught. The ship's hull cracked, and for a moment, it seemed as if the entire vessel would split in two. But then, in a flash of brilliant light, the Horizon exploded, debris scattering into the darkness. "No!" Lena whispered, the loss hitting her like a physical blow. Silence fell over the command center as the reality of the situation sank in. They were outmatched, outgunned. But Lena wasn't about to give up. She had prepared for this moment, knowing full well that not everyone would make it back. "We're not done yet," she said, her voice cold and hard. "Target their command ship. We take that out, and they fall apart." Morales hesitated. "But Captain—" "Do it," Lena ordered, her eyes burning with determination. "We take out their leader, or we all die here." Morales nodded, her hands moving swiftly across the console as she recalibrated their targeting systems. Lena watched the display as the Zargioel command ship came into focus. It was massive, easily twice the size of the Atlas, and bristling with weapons. A single mistake could spell doom for them all. "We're in position," Davis confirmed, his voice tense. Lena took a deep breath. "Fire!" The Atlas unleashed a full salvo, every missile and energy weapon it had left aimed at the enemy command ship. The weapons streaked across the battlefield, cutting through the chaos of the ongoing fight. Time seemed to slow as Lena watched the projectiles close in on their target. The command ship's shields flickered as the first missiles hit. Then, with a deafening explosion, the shields collapsed. The rest of the missiles slammed into the ship's hull, ripping it apart in a series of brilliant flashes. A shockwave rippled through the enemy fleet as the command ship disintegrated. For the first time, the Zargioel hesitated. "They're breaking formation!" Davis shouted, disbelief in his voice. "We did it!" Lena exhaled, the tension draining from her shoulders. But she knew the battle wasn't over yet. They had dealt a heavy blow, but the Zargioel were still dangerous. And they were angry. "Prepare for retaliation," Lena ordered, her voice steady once more. "This isn't over." Outside, the Zargioel ships regrouped, fury radiating from their every movement. The Atlas and the rest of the fleet braced for the next wave. The bridge of the Atlas hummed with tension as the crew braced for the inevitable Zargioel retaliation. The destruction of their command ship had momentarily stunned the alien fleet, but Lena Hayes knew that the pause would not last long. Zargioel were relentless in battle, proud, unyielding, and vengeful. The calm was just the eye of the storm. "Captain, incoming transmission from the Vanguard," Lieutenant Yara Morales said, her voice tight with anticipation. "They've regained control after sustaining critical damage, but their weapons are nearly depleted." Lena nodded, her mind racing. She quickly scanned the tactical map, taking in the positions of Earth's remaining ships. They had dealt a significant blow, but their forces were running low on resources. Shields, munitions, and fuel reserves were all at critical levels. "Patch them through," Lena said. The flickering image of Captain Oren from the Vanguard appeared on the main screen. His face was battered, his uniform scorched, but his resolve remained unshaken. "We're barely holding together, Lena," he said without preamble. "But if we retreat now, the Zargioel will regroup and annihilate us. We need a plan fast." Lena looked into his eyes, sharing the weight of their predicament. "We don't have much time," she replied, her voice low but firm. "They'll retaliate hard. We've taken down their leadership, but they're still out for blood." Oren's expression was grim. "We can't outgun them. What do we have left?" "Not much," she admitted, glancing at the weapons report. "But we do have the element of surprise. They still don't fully understand how we fight, how we adapt." Oren raised an eyebrow. "What are you suggesting?" Lena stared at the tactical map, the Zargioel fleet glowing ominously in the darkness. There was one play left, but it was risky, dangerous beyond reason. Yet, it was their only chance. She took a deep breath and spoke with quiet conviction. "We lure them in," she said. "Make them think we're retreating, falling apart. When they commit, we'll spring the trap." Oren frowned. "Spring the trap with what, Lena?" "We're running on fumes." Lena's lips curled into a faint smile. "The Tempest and the Dauntless still have their full payloads. We've been holding them back, waiting for the right moment. We lure the Zargioel into a concentrated zone, and when they're in range, we hit them with everything we have left." Oren's eyes flickered with understanding. "You want to funnel them into a kill zone?" "Exactly," she said. "It's a gamble, but it's our best shot. The Zargioel are overconfident, they'll think they've broken us. But we'll use their arrogance against them." Oren nodded slowly, his expression hardening. "It's risky, but better than getting picked off one by one." "Good," Lena said, her tone resolute. "We'll need to coordinate our retreat perfectly. Timing is everything." She turned to her crew. "Lieutenant Morales, relay the plan to the fleet. We'll begin our retreat on my command. Keep the Tempest and Dauntless hidden until I give the signal." Morales' fingers flew across the console as she sent the orders. The atmosphere on the bridge was taut, the crew's faces pale but determined. They had been through so much already, but the fight wasn't over. Not yet. Outside, the Zargioel ships began to move again, their chaotic formations slowly reorganizing. Lena watched as the alien vessels surged forward, hungry for revenge. They were falling into her trap, just as she had hoped. "Begin the retreat," Lena ordered. The remaining Earth ships, battered and bruised, began pulling back. The Zargioel followed, sensing weakness. It was a delicate dance. One false move and the ruse would collapse, leaving them defenseless. But so far, the Zargioel were taking the bait. "They're closing in," Morales reported, tension creeping into her voice. "We have maybe 2 minutes before they're on top of us." Lena's heart pounded in her chest. "Hold steady," she murmured, her gaze never leaving the tactical map. "Wait for it." The Zargioel fleet was now within striking distance, their ships moving into the kill zone. Lena could feel the pressure building in the air, the weight of the moment pressing down on her shoulders. One mistake, and it was over. "Now!" Lena shouted. "Hit them with everything we've got!" The Tempest and Dauntless sprang to life, their full arsenal unleashing a torrent of firepower at the unsuspecting Zargioel. Missiles streaked across the void, followed by energy beams that sliced through the alien ships like blades. The Zargioel, caught off guard by the sudden assault, reeled in confusion. The trap had worked. Explosions rippled through the enemy fleet, their ships crumbling under the concentrated fire. Lena watched as the Zargioel's center crumbled, their forces scattering in disarray. The remaining Earth ships pressed the attack, using every last ounce of their firepower to finish the job. "They're retreating!" Davis exclaimed, his voice filled with disbelief and triumph. "We've broken them!" Lena allowed herself a moment of relief as the Zargioel ships began to pull back, retreating into the darkness of space. They had done it. Against all odds, they had turned the tide. But Lena's victory was bittersweet. The battlefield was littered with the wreckage of Earth's ships, ships that would never return home. They had won, but at a terrible cost. "Secure the area," Lena ordered softly. "Prepare to retrieve survivors." As the crew set to work, Lena stood silently on the bridge, staring out at the debris-filled void. The battle was over, but the war was far from finished. The Zargioel would be back. And next time, they wouldn't underestimate humanity. "We survived," she whispered to herself, her hands trembling as the adrenaline began to wear off. But for how long? The answer, she knew, was uncertain. But for now, they had earned a moment of peace.